Hello guys, this is Rigid Body Dynamics lecture 2 and here we will be starting with motion that rigid bodies can undergo. So first of all, a rigid body can undergo pure translatory motion or pure rotational motion or combined translational and rotational motion. Now the question arises, what are these actually? So let's talk about it one by one. So first of all, translational motion. What is a translational motion? Usually we define a motion to be translational when all of its points, a body is moving, let us say this is a body, it is moving in pure translatory motion. In that case, every point on that particle, they will follow the same path. So distance covered by every particle will be same. For example, let us see this diagram right here. Here let us say we have a rod like this and this rod moves in the path given. So here if we consider this point to be P1 point and this point to be P2 point, we can see the path, they are exactly identical. If we move the rod in this manner, then all the points, they are exactly identical points, means each point will travel through the same kind of path. So path length traveled will be same, right? In this case the path length traveled will be same by all of the points. The point here will follow the same kind of path, the point here will also follow the same kind of path. This kind of motion is translatory motion. Or usually rectilinear motion, in which the particle travels in straight line, is kind of a translational motion. Now let us talk about rotational. What is rotational? In case of rotational motion, the particles of a body, they revolve about a point. So let us talk about a clock, right? If this is considered a clock and this is one of the hands and this is another hand, let us say this is the hour hand and this is the minute hand. Now if we say this point is P, this point revolves about this point, right? So it rotates like this in a circular manner. Similarly, this point also, it also rotates about that point in a circular manner. Now there is a point, why don't we call it circular motion then? We will go to that point in just a minute. So first of all, now we have two motions, one is translational, other is rotational, then there is combined translational or rotational. What is the combined motion then? See, let us say we have a wheel of a cycle. So when we paddle the cycle, let us say this is our cycle right here, in rough I have drawn like this diagram, and if we paddle this cycle, the wheel, it rotates about its own axis, right, and it also moves. So if we consider the center of the wheel, then the center moves in a straight line path like this. Now all other points, they do not only rotate, because if they rotate they should stay here. Now we know this point, it will continue to move to this point also. Similarly, let us say this point, as it rotates to let us say this position, this point must have moved somewhat behind, right? Now as the center has moved here, so this point is now here. So if I say this point is P, after a part of rotation, this point will go up to this here, point P. So this motion, if we consider about center, this point is in rotational motion. So if you are sitting here and observing point P, then we will say this is in rotational motion. But if you are looking at it from outside, then this point also moves in straight line in forward direction, right, as along with the wheel. So in that case, this kind of motion of the wheel here will be combined rotational and translational motion, right. So these are the three types of motion that a rigid body can undergo. Now we will see how this rotational is different from circular motion. Now let us see at this example here. Here this is our clock that I have shown in the previous example, and here some other random example I am giving. Now think, here this is one kind of object, okay, this yellow one is the object. Now let us say I move this yellow object this manner. So here if I give this top point as P and this bottom point as Q, the arrowhead is pointed named as P and this lower point is named as Q, we can say the arrow point, this P point and Q point, they are not changing their orientation. The arrow is still upright, means it is showing upward, but it is moving like this. Now think here, all the points, see, look at this top point, it will move in a circle like this. See, this top point is moving in a circle. What about the bottom point Q? this Q point is also moving in a circle, right? But both are having same circles, they are not concentric circles. The size of the circle is same, but they are not concentric, rather the center of the first one and the center of the second one, they have some distance. Here each point is having same path. See, all both the points are having means they are covering the same path, right? But the orientation of the object is not changing. But look at this case, it is like the motion of any one of the hands of a clock. See, if this point is P and let us say this point is named as Q, here this point will be P, right? If this one rotates like this, then P will reach here and Q will reach here. Now after some time Q will reach here, then Q will reach here, then Q will reach here again. Similarly, P will continue to reach here, then P will continue to reach here, then it will move to this point. Here if we observe, then P and Q, they move about the same point, but their paths are not same. So basically, if first of all at this point, see Q, if Q is a person, he has to look upward to look at P, but here Q has to look downward to look at P. That means the objects, they are changing their orientation with respect to each other. Here Q has to look upward, but here Q has to look downward. But let us say, see, let us talk about this case here. Here Q has to look upward to see P, right? But here also Q has to see upward to look at P. That means the object does not change its orientation about itself. It is not rotating about its own axis. The object is not rotating about any point inside the object. Its orientation is not changing, but in this case orientation is changing. This kind of motion is our rotational motion, where every point is moving in a circle, but the overall object, it is moving about its own axis also. Here every points are moving in a circle, but their orientation is not changing, means they are not rotating about itself. Here if it is looking like this, then like this, then like this, means it is revolving about itself. Here it is not revolving, it is circular motion. This motion here is pure circular motion. So this is the difference between the circular and rotational motion. In rotational motion, the points, overall object is moving about its own axis also, but if we say pure circular motion, then the orientation of the object does not change, means it does not rotate about its own axis. It rotates about an external axis, but its orientation is not changing. This is the example here. Now let us move further. So let us talk about rotational motion. We have known about translatory motion, right? So let us talk about translatory motion. In case of translatory motion, we define different parameters like momentum P equals mv, let us say force F equals ma, let us say we have written kinetic energy Ek equals to half mv square. See here this m, what does this m represent? In case of translatory motion, basically this m, which is another term for mass, right, short for mass. This mass used to represent inertia. This mass used to represent inertia. Then in case of rotational motion, does the same mass represent inertia, or is there something else which represent inertia? Let us see. So here we have object, this yellow one is a object and it revolves about one axis like this, right. So each point, they are at different positions with respect to axis. Let us say this distance is r1, this distance is r2, they have different positions, this is r3, this is r4, like this. Now if they are moving and each point they are moving in a circular path, so this point is like moving in a circle, this point is moving in a circle, this point is moving in a circle, they are moving in a circular path, right. In case of circular path, the velocity or the speed of rotation, if we talk about kinetic energy, we only need to calculate speed. So v will be r into omega, where r is the radius of the circular path. Here r will be the radius of the circular path, or we can say the distance of the point from the axis, that will be the circle, right. See in each case, radius of the circle is equal to its distance, the distance of the point from the axis. So that is the circular path's radius, and omega is the rotational velocity, the angular velocity here. And in the previous lecture we have seen, in a rigid body omega of any point about any point is same, omega of any point about any point within the same rigid body is same. So we don't need to care about omega for every body about this axis is same. Now let's write the kinetic energy. How do we write the kinetic energy then? We have to write the kinetic energy of the individual particles and sum it, we have to add it, right? So let's say first particle half m1 v1 square, second particle half m2 v2 square, third particle half m3 v3 square, and so on. It will continue till we complete all the particles, right? So this gives us half m1, but v1 we can write r1 into omega, because our formula is v equals r omega. Now v1 will be r1 into omega, because omega is same for everybody, right? So we do not need to write omega 1 omega 2, it is same for everybody. So here r1 omega, here instead of v2 we write r2 omega, here r3 omega, and so on. So their square, we are getting their square. So if here we take omega square as common, sorry my mistake, here omega square, if we take omega square as common and half as common, so half omega square taking out, we are getting m1 into r1 square, right? So r1 square, here r2 square, right? m2 r2 square, here r3 square, right? So m3 r3 square, and so on. Now if we compare this, see, in case of rotational motion we are getting half some value which is inside this bracket into omega square. This is almost looking like half m into v square of translatory motion. This almost looks like similar, right? So if this term represent inertia in case of translatory motion, then this term, it must represent inertia in case of rotational motion. So this term represents inertia in case of rotational motion, and this term right here we call this moment of inertia. So moment of inertia of a rigid body is summation of mi ri square, where I tends to change from 1 to n, right? And this summation gives us moment of inertia. So this is the term which gives us the value of inertia. And what is inertia actually? Let's talk about it in the next slide, right? So here we will be talking about moment of inertia. What is moment of inertia? Basically it is also inertia, but this applies in case of rotational motion. So we write capacity of a body to change its state of rotational motion. The state of rotational motion, if it changes, so this term, it provides the necessary resistance, means it does not like to change. If a body is fixed, it is at rest, and we try to rotate it, then how much torque will be needed or how difficult it will be to rotate it, that term is, that value we can get from moment of inertia. Okay, that is the term. Means let us say we talk about a fan, we have a fan, right, and we want to rotate the fan. If we just think if the fan's blade are made larger, let us say this is our original fan, and we make all the blades larger, then it will be difficult to rotate, right? It will be difficult to rotate, it cannot be rotated easily, because its moment of inertia is changing. It will be difficult to rotate it. So moment of inertia is the term which represents inertia in case of rotational motion, just like mass. So if I say a heavier mass, is it easier to move or it is difficult to move? You know, if two objects are at rest, then the smaller object or less mass object, it is easy to move, but for the large object it is very difficult to move for a large object. Or if we say a small object is already moving, but we want to stop it, let us say a small stone is moving, you want to stop it, and a very large rock is moving and you want to stop it. So it will be difficult to stop the large rock, right? So in case of stopping a moving body or to move a body at rest, both case it will be difficult if the mass is more in case of translatory motion. Similarly, to rotate a body at rest, or to make it rest, means when a body is already rotating and we want to stop it. In both of the case, if the moment of inertia of the body is high, then it will be difficult. If the moment of inertia is low, then it will be easy. Now, how to calculate moment of inertia? These are the formulas. If we have a point object, then the formula for moment of inertia is I equals mr square, where m is the mass and r is the distance from the axis. It is the distance from the axis. Now, if we have a combination of point masses, then how to do? Then we will write I equals m1 r1 square, m2 r2 square, and so on, where m are the masses and r are the distances of those respective masses from the axis, and we will see an example here. Now, if we have a continuous mass distribution, like let us say we have a disk or we have a rod like this or any random object like this, in that case we have a continuous mass distribution, then we need to apply this formula, which is I equals integration of dm into r square. Now, let us see how to calculate moment of inertia. Here we have an example. Let us say this is a square side, this there are 4 masses, and these 4 masses are arranged at the corners of a square distance, means a square, and the side of the square are a, each side is a here. In this case, see, let us say this mass is 2m, this is 3m, this is m, and this is 4m. If we rotate them about this axis, in that case we will see that for 2m the distance from the axis will be a by 2. For 3m also it is a by 2. For m again a by 2, and for 4m also a by 2. So, for all of them the distance from the axis is a by 2. So, we will apply the formula m1 r1 square plus m2 r2 square, and so on. So, see, we are getting 2m into distance square, again 3m into distance square, 4m into distance square plus m into distance square. This is the way we will calculate. Now, what happens if we change the axis? Let us say we change the axis to this horizontal one. As it is a square, so the distances here are not changing. See, these distances are still a by 2. All the distances are still a by 2. So, the moment of inertia formula will not change, it will not affect. So, moment of inertia will again remain same. See, 2m into a by 2 square, 3m into a by 2 square, and 4m into a by 2 square, and m into a by 2 square, same. Now, here I have taken a diametrical axis. Now, if we talk about the distances, see, 3m mass and 4m mass, they lie on the axis. So, distance from the axis will be 0. So, for 3m mass and 4m mass, the distance from the axis is 0. What about 2m mass? So, for 2m mass, this is the distance, right? This will be the distance. Similarly, for m mass, again this will be the distance for m mass, right? So, this is distance for m mass and this is distance for 2m mass. So, we will measure these distances. Now, see, if this side is a, this side is a, then this side will be root 2a, right? Then half of it, this half of it will be root 2 into a by 2, which is a by root 2. We will put this a by root 2 here. See, 2m into a by 2 square plus m into a by 2 square we have written. But for 3m and 4m, the distances are 0. So, we have added 0 square. So, this is how we calculate the moment of inertia if the object is made up of some point masses.